Emily, what identity are you currently signed in as? Are you in as at VMware or at Pivotal?
I believe at VMware.
You should double check that. I am looking and you are listed as an alternative host.
It's possible that last week I was not signed in as the correct identity. Definitely signed in as VMware now. And actually now I see I have more buttons to change for recording.
You bastards, all of you.
I'm glad that's recorded.
Yeah. Terrence and Joe, you mind slacking me in the leadership room the identities that you sign into Zoom as? Please.
Sure.
Okay, thank you both. Stephen, hi there. Feel free to take over the meeting.
Afternoon. Sure, that sounds good. So it looks like, do we start already or do you want me to kick it off?
You may begin. We were doing some recording housekeeping.
Got it. Yeah, we're still trying to figure out how to get that to work automatically, but some progress there actually. So remember to sign into the document. I don't think I see everybody's names there quite yet. And we'll jump in with, I don't see anybody new, so release planning and updates. Do we have Javier and or Emily?
Last week we released a patch of the lifecycle. And we cut releases of all the different Buildpack platform and distribution spec. So everyone check out the spec changes, the hard work of all your accumulated RFCs, and basically not much report other than that. Start work on the next lifecycle release. It's not clear when we'll ship it because we need to define, we need to finish the work that we shipped in the API, but you can follow the milestones on the repo.
Awesome. And I guess no Javier, but maybe we could get update for Pack next time he shows up.
I think we mentioned it today. I believe that next week is CCB for Pack, and then which means that a release should be cut in 2 weeks from today.
Awesome. Thanks for the update. All right, moving on to RFC review. And give me 1 second to share my screen. Sorry, too many tabs. All right, there we go. So first thing on the list is, looks like this new RFC opened from, it's Kenny, 5 days ago. Do we have Kenny here? Don't see him. Looks like this is just looking for feedback. Anybody have context on this one or anything anybody need to do to push it along? This is about adding a label to describe the base image. All right, we'll let people leave comments. Next thing is extension spec for builders. Dave, any updates on this one this week? I don't see any agenda.
There's no comment, like everything's resolved on it, and they're all the boots. So I think it should be good for FCP.
Awesome. So I'll just mark that on here. Is it say FCP yet? Does not. FCP closing on what's how long is it again? It's a week. So
1 week.
oh gosh, that's over the month. October is 31 days. So 4th.
The 4th is the next one.
Can I do math? Cool.
Yeah.
FCP closing at 11/4.
We throw the label on there too.
Yep, totally. It has spec extensions builder.
Oh, the FCP.
label.
Actually,
Yeah.
I can do it. Why don't you keep going with the thing and I'll do it.
Cool. Pre-release versions and experimental features for API.
Emily and I chatted last week, and I pushed the updates before the meeting that she wanted. So I guess just looking for votes and stuff, unless there's other feedback.
Awesome. Sounds good. If you haven't voted on that, please do. I know that's me also. Application mix-ins, move on to stack packs. Looks like stack packs are on the agenda today. It'd be great if, we really dug in the last working group meeting on stack packs because it's been sitting around for a long time and there's a lot of interest in it. I'm hoping today we have some more time to kind of dig deeper into that. Let's try to focus on that, or maybe schedule more time again this week, or use Thursday again if we can to try to get that one finished. But I'll skip over it because it's on the agenda. Buildpacks should be able to provide the default process for an app.
So the last time this came up in working group, we had a couple of migration paths that we discussed at length, and I updated the RFC to describe each of those. I think we had also indicated that we just need to get everyone together who cares about this.
Got it. It looks like we have a lot of the approvals. Technically, this could even probably go to SCP right now with the number of checks. Has it changed a lot and we need to re-request them?
The only way that it substantively changed was the pack migration path, which was still kind of an open question the last time we re-requested. So I don't know. It sounds like we're sort of coalescing around one of the options, but I'm not sure if that's like a sufficient. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the proposed options would make this so that it also applies to the platform API, which I think is kind of where my vote is towards, in which case I would say it adds, I wouldn't say it changes, but it definitely adds to this RFC.
Got it. So sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know if Emily thinks otherwise, because I know she's had some thoughts about that.
I agree. I think if the option talking about is the one Jesse proposed, I feel like after the discussion last week, I thought about it and decided that that was my favorite because it made sense that it in some ways it's a little bit of an in-between option because it turns on and off with the platform API, but applies to Buildpack output depending on the Buildpack API. But I think despite some of that complexity describing it, it's the best way forward. But I'm really okay with any of the options. Like my check will stand whichever option we decide to go with.
Yeah, I think the only thing holding me from voting was basically answering the migration. And if it's a thing we're wanting, I think it should be included in this RFC. And if it's a thing we want to include, I don't know if I feel comfortable withholding it before moving to FCP would be my stance. But I know I'm also the only holdout out of the binding votes that hasn't voted for it. But but it sounds
Right.
like we're really close. So it just seems like we should just do the work and then get it through.
Since I think we have consensus on the interface and there's just more work to talk about in the for what the migration looks like before we get it in, unless somebody wants to put it on the agenda, I'm going to move on to the next thing and we can keep working on it asynchronously. Next thing is layer origin metadata. Forget what we said last time about this. Were there outstanding questions still? I think maybe that was it.
I think that was the case.
There's something from Joe, for Natalie here. Cool. So we're just waiting for Paul to engage on those. And experimental features. I think Terrence, you took this one over.
Yeah, I think my last comment, I met with Emily about this too last week, and I think I made a comment that I want to tag up with Javier because I don't know, we may just close this, so not anything to do in this meeting for it.
Cool. And offline build packages, that's on the agenda as asset caches. So we are through with RC review. Next thing on the agenda is Buildpack registry demo.
Yeah, so Travis is going to show us something he's been working on for the Buildpack registry. There's a few reasons he started on this, but the main thing is that as we were thinking about how we want to message Buildpack registry, it's really about, especially in the first phases, it's really about discoverability of Buildpacks. And the index as it is today is lacking. Like you'd have to manually go hunt through it. It'd be kind of gross. So we talked about some things like CLI commands for searching and whatnot, but yeah, so Travis will show you what he's been working on, and then we can talk about where it might fit into our internet footprint.
Yeah, let me share with you. My gosh, I have not shared on Zoom in a long time. Where do I go? Share screen right there. Okay. Can you all see this okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so as Joe mentioned, currently all of the build packs for the Buildpack registry is stored in this repo right here, the registry index repo, and it's not very user-friendly if somebody wants to just search and look for any kind of particular build pack. So one of the things I've been spiking on is just trying to think, okay, what's maybe a way that we can expose and have a low barrier to entry to allowing users to find build packs they might want to use, or maybe even build packs they don't know exist. So one of the first steps I was just looking at, okay, how hard would it be to take the registry, normalize it, and do like a simple index on different fields to make it more searchable. So I have this endpoint right now, which allows you to pass in a query string, looking for things like Kato. I have a build pack that I pushed up here, Node.js. So kind of, pretty basic get endpoint here. One of the inspirations of registry build packs has come from the Crates.io website. I don't know if you've taken a look at it, but basically they provide a nice interface where you can search for things as well related to, in this case, the Rust community. And so I kind of ran with this as a bit of inspiration. And one of the things I was looking at is, okay, so right now we have our Buildpacks.io. I'm not saying we should necessarily do this, but perhaps we could have the ability to direct a user to a search endpoint. They click here, it takes them to a search interface. And they can do similar things, like look for Node.js, Kato, things like that. So this is definitely a spike, and there's a lot of room for discussion, but I just wanted to just quickly show you a little bit of kind of where my head is. I think Joe's head's kind of in the same place on how we can make this easy for our users to gain access to all the community build packs out there so they can start using them. So that's really it I have for now. I wanted just to quickly give you a quick glimpse at.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. One thing I think is worth calling out is that this is like a facade. This isn't on the critical path. So if this thing were ever to crash, you know, it's not, you can still publish, you can still consume all that.
Love it.
It looks really nice.
What happens when you click that link? Once you search and find it?
So yeah, right now it's just a placeholder, but one thought is it could create a more detailed dialogue of information around that build pack from like GCR or Docker Hub. It's still
we have to pull the config blob and then get the metadata.
Yeah, it's a little more involved, but it could be like the ability to drill down on more details on that particular image and metadata around it. Yeah.
Fig blob is small. Probably do that.
So yeah, I don't know if there's definitely there's an RFC that I'm thinking about writing regarding search on the pack CLI itself, in addition to this, but I just show this to you in case anybody has any thoughts or ideas. I'm not an expert on CSS, so if we were to drive this further, it might be nice to work with somebody who has experience on the actual website to make it look and feel seamless between everything else in the Pack.io website. But anyways, yeah, happy to hear anything that anyone has to say. Now or later, doesn't have to happen right now either.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely love it. I am curious from a technical side of things, whether or not we have something already running. Like, do we have an instance somewhere where we could host essentially a REST endpoint? I know there's the slack.buildpacks.io. I don't know where that's running. But
that's on Heroku because I set that up, I think.
okay.
Is the source code for just like the spike you just did there available somewhere?
Not right now, but I can push it up somewhere. Yeah, it's written in Node.js for now. It was just because I can get things done really quickly. I'm not married to that particular tech stack. Front end is React. So yeah, we can rewrite it in something else, the back end, if we want to, if we have strong opinions on that. I'm pretty open.
The intent for the whole registry interface, like everything that you could access going through Buildpacks.io, is the intent, or is the intent there for that to be part of the Buildpacks project and, you know, and repos and kind of with the sort of IP owned by the CNCF?
Yes.
Awesome. I think it'd be great to kind of get that out there and get people looking at it, you know, start trying to get contributions early, because for a lot of these past components, you know, as a couple of us sat down and shipped the initial version, I think, you know, the sooner we can get it out in the open and get, you know, the community looking at it, the better. But again, it's a spike right now. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's just good feedback though. Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Really exciting stuff. I think once people can find build packs from Buildpacks.io, that really improves it, because we don't have a great story right now about, you know, you go to Buildpacks.io and then you download pack and then you realize that actually the things you're going to run aren't really coming from Buildpacks.io, and, you know, really far in the process, right? And I think this is like just a really nice thing for discoverability, which is you can go to Buildpacks.io and find build packs immediately, and it's in a way that's, you know, doesn't prefer a particular vendor, doesn't make it seem like we're endorsing, you know, things that are outside the project. I think that's like, it hits just the right balance there, for me at least. Awesome. Anything else on Buildpacks registry demo, or should we move on to StackPacks?
We can move on. Thank you, Travis.
All right. So we got PR 111. What's the? I guess Joe, do you want to take this?
Sure. So we had a good discussion last Thursday, and I tried to capture all the changes from there. Let me share my screen, I guess. The one thing that is, I think, notably outstanding, or there may be other things that require discussion, but one thing for sure is the schema for entries of the Buildpack plan. I'm proposing a little bit different than what I think was discussed, because what we discussed was having an array of mixins with under the entries array, which is not great because you could have two entries that contain the same mixins, like two different lists, and then they both have libpq or something. And I don't think it makes sense to have the Buildpack itself sort that out. My thinking was that the life cycle should sort of take the requires, which look like this, and then unfurl them. And then by the time it reaches the bin build phase, it'll also be split out into an individual something. Jesse pointed out that this is a bit of a change to the lifecycle internals, because right now it's kind of dumb. It's just like takes what it gets, puts it in the entries, and it's done with it. But here it would have to do some like post-processing. I'm not sure if that's like significant and problematic, but
I think we have to do post-processing anyways, right? Because we have to compare the required mix-ins with what's available on the stack and what's being statically provided by the build packs. I feel like this part of the build plan already needs extra logic. It can't be totally dumb. So I don't see this as particularly problematic.
I'm all on board on, we were trying to decide between, should we have a name and then multiple mixins, or no name and a mixins list, or the name is the name of the mixin and there's a Boolean. And I like the solution of it either has name equals or it has mixin equals. And therefore it's both consistent with mixins being a list and mixin being one mixin name. And it's like, I think it does those things. But then up here in requires, there's like the mixin name is twice. I don't understand what the require is trying to do. Like, why can't that just be the same thing as you did below?
Oh, this is wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. Yeah.
That's left over. That should just be whatever the spec says today.
It should be the array. Yeah. I think the example above it looks more correct.
This is for Buildpack, Tom. But yeah, it should look like this. Yeah. But it shouldn't have star, because you can't require star. That would be nuts.
Why don't we just make it look like the build plan one?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or like,
just,
sorry.
Oh, the build plan one.
Yeah.
Oh, a single mixin? I see. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I've found that.
Just then they're consistent in both places. I think Emily wanted that mixins equal list as opposed to name equaling the mixin name and some special property. But yeah, to me, the compromise you did for the lower thing, we could just do that consistently as long as Emily's okay with it, if you don't feel like it's going too far off the consistency thing.
It's fine.
I'm 100% happy with that.
Awesome. If we just standardize on that, I think makes things work pretty well. Did you see, I think Jesse and I last week started a branch with just kind of working through the thing, and we didn't get all that far, but we got somewhere. Did you incorporate those changes into this too?
Yeah, I had made a bunch of my own changes beforehand, so I wasn't able to merge it. But some of the changes I made were the same thing, and then I tried to work in all of them that
Perfect.
But I didn't do a merge, so there's a commit that's basically like credit to that branch.
Whatever. It's just as long as the information got there. That's the only thing I was wondering about.
I had one question about something that got merged in here, and maybe it was about there's an additional Boolean, it was restore in addition to cache. That confused me, that was added.
I thought, I'm a little fuzzy on this too, but I thought that's what Steven wanted, and I just stopped at that point. I was like, if Steven wants it, I'm going to do it. So I'm not sure if this is actually what's desired.
I think what we had talked about was that dropping the item potent flag, right?
Yeah.
The non-item potent flag for now. That was the only bool that I remember we removed. I don't remember us adding a restore there.
Okay, I may have misunderstood then. I thought the intention was that this would be what allows you to like override, or well, I guess we said that doesn't exist, so we're not really accounting for it, but like overriding if the cache is destroyed when the stack is upgraded. But since we don't know that, we're not doing it now. So maybe that's why it doesn't matter. I don't know. If we're fine getting rid of it, that's
so I think maybe what we talked about last time is if the base image is updated, we always have to throw away the base layer, right? Not the excluded extra stuff, but that base layer that we're chopping things off of, because it's not safe to kind of rebase that on a new base image. But then for the things you're specifically calling out as excluded, because you're specifically denoting those as like, hey, this isn't going to end up in the next thing, and it's a specific set of files that I know I want to recover each time, we can make an exception for those. But I didn't think there was an extra Boolean we needed to add to do that. I think it was just a discussion of what that workflow looks like. And by getting rid of non-item potent, we make it even simpler, where we say like, hey, their builds never start on the previous image, right? They always, if the base image changes, they always start from scratch, right?
Unless they cache something, right?
Right, exactly. Sorry, to be really clear, if without non-item potent, the next build always starts fresh, and we never recover the base image. And then we'll, in another RFC, we'll introduce recovering the base image and performing the build on top of that image. Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, yep, I can fix that because I was confused too.
Could I suggest that after, unless you have more specific questions right here, we could do asset packages, and then any time at the end, and maybe the whole time next time, we'll just go line by line through the whole RFC.
Yeah,
until everybody feels comfortable with it. Maybe people could drop off if they're not interested in stack packs.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. I won't be able to do that today though, but yeah, and well, let's do that. Let's maybe do it tomorrow. I can go through and do the cleanup based on this discussion, and then do the readout tomorrow.
Cool. I just meant today, if we end early, or if the asset packages end early, we could use the rest of the time. Unless you have.
Yeah, I've got to cut out early, so.
Got it. Okay. Let's plan for tomorrow then. We'll just go through again and figure it out, and then that way, folks here can, if they're not interested in stack packs, can choose to get that time back.
Sounds good.
Any more specific questions on stack packs though? Cool. Hopefully after tomorrow, we have the RFC in a place where there are no more big questions or no more kind of confusion about what should go in and out and things like that. So for people who have, binding votes to the RFC after tomorrow, please take a look and make sure it's what you want, so we can get it in, because it has been quite a long time since we kicked this off, and it'd be great to really start building that implementation that we can ship. All right, so let's move on to, let's move on to asset packages.
Yeah, okay. Oops, here, 1 second. All right. Can everyone see this?
You're good?
Okay, sweet. So I think just giving a quick recap of where this RFC was last time and where it's gone since then. So the last problem we were running into was that KPack needed the ability to look at label metadata and figure out what all of the asset cache assets were associated with any given build pack. And
we just didn't have a way we didn't provide enough information for you to take any meta build pack, look at a build pack inside of that, and then figure out what assets would be associated with that. So kind of going along with some of the suggestions I think Emily made, we've added some additional information into Buildpack toml so that this is always going to be present. So any asset is going to be directly embedded into this file. We can easily extract this information and carry it along with any build package that also contains this individual build pack. And so, yeah, I think that kind of solves the problem that KPack was running into, where it needed the ability to decompose meta build packs. There's also been some updates kind of around the formatting here. So a lot of these labels are just going to be the same between build packages and builders. So we're basically going to have on everything, there's going to be a label that contains all of the asset SHAs and maps these to the individual layer that actually contains this asset. Then each build package and builder will also contain information about what assets a given build pack contains. So you can figure out that mapping. And then lastly, there's going to be an additional label that's should be mutable in some way so that we can figure out or indicate some recommended image locations as well as like an image SHA and point to the assets that this image contains. So I think that kind of wraps that last thing up. I don't know if there's any questions about how this works, if anyone's had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, can you go back up to the Buildpack toml declaration of the asset?
Yeah. There you
go. So this looks a lot like metadata.dependencies out of the Paketo build packs specifically, but it's not complete. So it's missing some things that I would like from my build packs, like the ID and the version number. Do you feel that assets could be enriched beyond what's required in the specification with those things, or would you store them somewhere else? What's the plan with that?
So kind of this is, I guess, like a minimum set of the stuff that I would need in order to get all these components to actually work together. I don't think there's anything about, if you pass additional metadata, I think I should just carry that along, right? Keep that visible on a label, but yeah, kind of.
What did you have in mind for the metadata entry in that assets there? I noticed it's just a string. Yeah, that line.
Oh yeah. Did I? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I tried to just update this like 10 minutes ago to be a mapping, but that did not go through.
So alternately, it could go in there as well, that kind of information.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So we're missing from the stuff that you use now, Ben, we're missing version ID and licenses. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
There's also source information in some of the other build packs on the Paketo side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, another option would be that these are just kind of the things that are behaviorally, like have some behavior associated with them, and that anything else you add as a top level key, I mean, this is basically just getting translated into a JSON object that has the same exact format. Be very easy to just like carry additional stuff along, just wouldn't impact behavior at all.
I like what you have there where only the functional things sit outside, the things that are actually used by the API. And anything that's purely metadata for the build pack's sake can be whatever you want. It has to be in that metadata thing. If you allow other things at the top, then it prevents us from extending the functional items in the future because we conflict with the user's potential additional fields. So I'm a fan.
They're just gonna we're just going to flip flop on that particular design point. The core team is just going to flip flop on that particular design point until the end of the universe, as near as I can tell.
Yeah, I feel like it's on the
agree.
other side last time, but I want to advocate for things like non-functional things like licenses being up there, right? So that if somebody wanted to build an API that gathered licenses for assets or something, just having a standard place to put it allows for integrations that wouldn't be possible if every group of Buildpacks was defining it on its own.
So what's your argument for putting that in metadata or putting it at a top level key?
I was arguing for putting it at top level.
I want a separation between the functional components and other components, right? It's like, it's not, if license has nothing to do with caching an asset, right? Like if we want to standardize on, you know, assets with licenses should have a license inside of a particular place, then I think that's great. We should do that. But I don't see a reason for putting license information in the API when we don't know how people are going to use the API yet, right? And on the Pacato side, we have a use case for licenses and source information and very particular things. I don't want to assume that everybody has a use case for those items.
I mean, haven't we gone the opposite way on a lot of other things? Like we put all of those fields in Project TOML. We just introduced a bunch of stack labels that add non-functional metadata that's specified in the API.
I think the idea there is that, or I would say the things we've added, well, two things. The things we've added in Project TOML is intended to be an app descriptor and they're generic properties of applications, right? This is intended to be a cache of an artifact. It's like what a generic property of that cache of an artifact is, seems like it's much more, we're assuming a lot more if we say it has a license or it has, you know, other things like that. But also I wasn't exactly supportive of putting all the stuff in Project TOML as part of the API, or like, you know, I would also argue kind of that maybe that's going a little too far too. But here it seems worse to me than that.
I'm totally happy to leave it out. It's fine with me.
It feels like if that, yeah, like I am kind of sympathetic moving a lot of that stuff into metadata and promoting it at some point in the future. Like I think in my experience with enterprises that are using these kinds of dependencies, these kinds of assets, having license as a mandatory thing is like a really big deal for them. SPDX, you know, identifiers and
And we lost you. Give him 1 more minute. Yeah, hopefully, no, he's still there, but still.
Okay.
I think Ben was going to say that's really important information. I definitely agree that it's really important information. Just want to, if it's not functionally necessary for the spec, and given that it's a generic thing, like I prefer to keep it out, but we can also chat more asynchronously in the RFC about it too.
Let's start by keeping it out. I guess makes sense to me. We can always add it in later.
And Ben, back? Can you hear us now?
Yeah. So I was gonna suggest, I think name actually needs to be pushed down into metadata as well, because that'll be non-functional. Like URI, SHA, and stack are the only things that anyone would ever need to make a decision on whether or not to include.
Is that right, Dan? Do we need the name for?
No, we don't
okay.
rely on it.
I agree.
There's some reason this came up last time. I can't remember what it is though. It was about like printing error messages. I think McNew, you raised this point, right? That you want to be able to print an error message about particular assets. Or be able to say like, there's no cache that has asset foo. Is more meaningful than no cache has exit SHA, whatever.
Yeah, it's just about the general human readability of like a asset ID versus cannot find asset or asset SHA-256.
Yeah, that's compelling. And I think I'm okay with the update to metadata to be like just another map.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's easy.
Awesome.
Okay. I guess one of the things that I think there'll probably be a little bit of discussion on is kind of like the interface that these things are going to have when you're actually creating them, and kind of like what this looks like. And so as things stand right now, because you have this assets list in Buildpack TOML, all of the implementation build packs will be able to create an asset cache just based off of their Buildpack TOML.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
But then you can't really do that for any of the meta build packs, right? And you have some additional information, specifically this like includes array, which is going to point to other asset cache images, which then is not really information we want to include in a Buildpack TOML file. So it gets pushed into like package TOML, which is kind of the same break we have with like meta build packs right now, but it definitely feels a little bit bad. But
is that necessary? Can it not, when a meta build pack is created? Yeah, I guess what's the canonical representation of this metadata for tools that need it? Is it the label on the outside of the build package where you could sort of synthesize that when you created a meta build package, or does it have, or is it the Buildpack TOML or package TOML internally? Because even like package TOML isn't actually included in the build pack.
Yeah, so we could definitely use some of this information on the outside, specifically like we have a label here that tells you locations you could go and pull images down. It just means that this becomes a lot more impactful, right? And so if you wanted to like partially vendor an individual build package, you would suddenly be dependent on just other build packs that you are including, rather than being able to like set this in a configuration file.
Yeah, like I'm just concerned that it's like a huge amount of duplication, and like it effectively means if you're trying to do some sort of automation, you've got to notice every time a sub build pack is updated, identify where in package TOML the assets that it used to be responsible for are, delete all of those out, and then go back and grab the new ones and put those into that and check that back into source control. And like, that's a pretty heavy lift.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some, if we're not doing the layer linking automatic reuse thing, right? I feel like the asset caches become useful when you're distributing offline, but actually the URI in the Buildpack TOML, which we could put in the label, is sufficient for an online case. Like maybe this gets even simpler. Like you could create an offline builder from a bunch of build packages and no asset cache with vendored assets, because you have all the information, right? You have the URIs and you can synthesize it on the fly. And then asset caches become something that you can package separately and then use in a platform that needs a different place to get assets from. But if that's true, that we don't need the locations on the build package, right? Because the canonical location is never the right one. You're only using an asset cache in a case where you're shipping assets in a place where the URIs are not accessible.
Yeah, so definitely if we have something that's like default behavior, it just means that it's less configurable, but there's enough information here to make that work.
I've always sort of liked using the URIs here. I think one of the reasons we originally went to asset packages, even in the case where the URIs are accessible, was to support some of the layer auto-linking magic that we've left out. But maybe we do this simpler one with the URIs for now, and then we could add it back in if we want to support it.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's nothing to And there's nothing to stop like whatever automation we build around this, right? So if you want to make it so Pack understands how to make offline versions of these and download them all for you and cache them, like those can still go on to separate layers, right? Like that's how we should actually do that, guarantee that they're reproducible and ordered in the same way and everything. But it doesn't require us to pre-build those layers necessarily.
I'm not
They
sure I
make it
understand.
nice and simple, right?
I'm not sure I understand the change you're proposing from what's here.
So beforehand, let's say you had a package TOML and maybe an asset TOML or whatever, and you wanted to, you'd be packaging a build pack and you'd be packaging an asset cache. And then we'd be assuming that when someone makes like an offline builder, they would want to consume both of those. But really, if you just stick the asset metadata on the build package label, the build package alone has enough information to make any permutation of online and offline when you're actually running, right? When you're creating a builder, because you have the URIs available. You don't need to have made these in layers in a separate image. And then I think where asset caches come in is if it's a standardized way of distributing the offline components to a place where maybe the URIs are not accessible.
When you say URIs, do you mean the URI like a place where you can find the upstream bits, not the ref of the asset cache? So like it feels weird that every asset, what if you have assets that aren't available, right? Via, like, what if you just have some stuff and it's not publicly available from a URI and you want to put it in a, you know, make it an offline asset? How would you do that?
I think you can still make an offline asset, right? And then it could be an input when you're creating a builder. But I'm not sure that we need the location of that asset. Like in that case, it's not accessible for a reason, right? So you wouldn't want to do this workflow where you're then sticking a reference to that image on a publicly accessible build pack anyways to synthesize that, right? That always be coming in, that input would be coming from somewhere different. So I think backing up here for a second, we've always had a use case where someone has a build pack and someone has an asset cache and they're coming together to make a builder. That's not going away. I'm not suggesting we get rid of that. The thing I'm suggesting we get rid of is the hint on the build pack that tells you where to find the asset cache. Because I think you should either have to supply both, or we can try to, but the build pack can contain enough information that we can make offline versions of things on the fly if you don't supply the other one. Does that make sense?
Right. Because in the biggest use case here for offline assets like this, that would likely be wrong because it would have been relocated anyway into an air-gapped environment. Like the situations where that value is correct and offline matters to you in the first place is like not common.
What does that save us? That means that in the meta build pack case, you could, would that allow us in the meta build pack case to more easily construct a meta build pack cache?
Yeah.
Because we would have the meta build packs, the build packages of the meta build pack would have their asset URIs on them, and we could reconstruct that cache in the meta build pack case automatically.
And selectively, potentially, right? Like when you told it to build, you could have it ignore some and grab some.
Makes sense. I worry that it's moving in a direction that's too, sort of too specific for the more general thing, which is just like being able to bring layers along with the build pack. But I also don't like the building asset caches out of other asset caches. Like I think everybody agrees. So I don't have a better solution.
Even the generic open source case would be simpler, right? Like you just in your build pack time will throw a bunch of URIs. You don't have to worry about things, but then later you can create builder -- offline. Like it just kind of works. And then you only have to worry about asset caches if you're trying to distribute things somewhere offline or distribute private things.
Just so I'm understanding this, the functionality of being able to do something offline is tied to the builder and not the build package then?
Yeah, I think that's true in this proposal, sort of from the get-go anyways.
With the caveat, of course, that builders might be synthesized on site, like the way KPack does today, where it doesn't actually download a builder. So a builder sort of acts as a combination of a build pack, as a build package and an asset package, or build packages and asset packages that go together, and you can distribute them separately from one another, and they're synthesized on site.
Even in the pack case, pack generates ephemeral builders when you specify build pack. So you can imagine -- build pack -- build pack -- asset -- asset, right? To pull in assets, So
from well-known locations. Yeah, absolutely.
I
guess by name. That's why you want your name there, right?
Yeah, like I'm well convinced of that now.
I think this makes sense to me. I just have to think about the implications more because it changes a lot of things.
Because I think we would do that for sort of commercial build packs where we want to do this. We would actually synthesize actual images with layers, like real live asset packages for these things, and ship those to customers who need to relocate internally as our packaging exercise, which is separate from other people's strategies for doing packaging as well.
Can't tell you how many Buildpack users would be a lot happier if they could do a pack build and add -- asset like JDK11 and just pull in that one asset, regardless of whether they built it before or not.
Actually, let me ask this question then. Can you go back to the build pack toml, Dan?
Yeah.
Is there, this does not, that's interesting. What establishes uniqueness? Like thinking about that use case, Emily, about trying to pack it with just that one and you put a flag in there, what value would you put in there? The value of the SHA?
Well, that's why I wanted an ID instead of in addition to a name, and tell people to like
yeah, even
reverse domain notation it or something.
Yeah, even our IDs aren't unique inside the Paketo build packs. We have multiple ones all called JRE, and the uniqueness is actually ID version tuple.
Yeah. Maybe we want the ID in the version. I mean, for now, we can leave it out. And then later when we want it, we can promote it. But maybe we just want it.
In the builder case, you're talking about a case where you want to for this, locally you want to specify JDK, and it's not in the online builder that you have right now. You want to specify it externally, right? It's you want to specify a location of an image that has the JDK in it, or are you trying to specify a URI to the JDK directly and have it dynamically build the cache. Does that make sense?
The declaration, sorry, go ahead, Emily.
What I was imagining, and you can tell me in a second, this is what you were also imagining, Ben, is that, so I have a build pack that says it can install JDK 11, and it has a URI for that, and all that information already exists, and I just want to tell the system that's creating my ephemeral builder to pull in this dependency.
Is it gonna, are you telling Pack to go download the JDK from the URI and Buildpack TOML dynamically before the build? Or are you telling it to go figure out an associated asset cache for that?
I'm telling it to download it from the URI before the build and make a layer and stick it on my builder image. And then if I've done that a lot, Pack has a layer cache, right? Or has an asset cache, and therefore it's just already there for me.
Got it. So the cache inside of the builder is indexed by SHA. So it doesn't really, the uniqueness of the ID and version doesn't really matter technically.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
a
whether you can
totally
reference
usability question.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to figure out how much we need that kind of descriptor.
Yeah, because I also see another mechanism, right? In the same way you can do -- build pack today, I think you should be able to do like a pack build -- build pack -- asset, and the coordinates of that asset are Docker coordinates, right? Go grab this image, grab the layers from it, glue them into this build along with the build pack layers that went in, and synthesize this builder right there. But there is so that's for like pack build. But along Emily's perspective, or Emily's example, there is also a pack create builder where you might want to sort of synthesize a new builder locally with all or some of the dependencies that have gone and downloaded. If you want them all, right, -- offline goes and grabs 800 dependencies and puts them all, and you effectively built an entire asset cache. But if you selectively wanted to do it, I know I only use Java 11, so when I go and do pack create builder offline, can I target something, right? Can I target a subset of the dependencies?
I think it should even work for pack build too, because pack build creates a builder.
Pack build's only going to grab, I mean, like, I guess, yeah, because you don't want to do it every time you build a new image. Yeah, okay.
So something like if you could pass -- asset and link to an asset cache, then that asset cache is always loaded during the build. If you pass -- asset, could you then do -- asset and then have a different format of that value where you specify a build pack ID colon a name and colon a asset version, and that's how you say, okay, for this build I want you to cache this particular asset in the builder ahead of time, or like, because now we're kind of overloading this concept of an asset to mean both an asset cache in an image and a reference to something that's cacheable inside of the artifact. At that point, like, should we have a mode where Pack just always automatically caches anything in Buildpack TOML in the asset thing? Do we even need to refer to those specifically? Should we just be caching assets in Buildpack TOML all the time in the .pack directory by default? Do we even need is there a reason to refer to a particular one for a build?
I think we need a way to refer to them eventually for performance optimizations, because there's a lot more things than you really want. And we don't know until it's running which ones you want. But I feel like it's actually, this concept is starting to feel a lot more powerful to me once we could talk about assets rather than asset caches. I feel like asset caches are just a way to distribute assets offline.
Yeah. Back to your question about whether or not we can do them all. I don't think we can. At one point last week, our Java build packs distributed 8 different versions of Java, and only one of them and maybe 2 of them would anyone ever actually use, but consistently. They never needed the JDKs Jerry's for 14 and 15.
In that case, I think we should do a name and a version, and we should let people fuzzy match. Should let people say, I want to cache all Javas, or all JDKs in the Java build pack, or all JDKs that are 2.x or something in the build pack. Otherwise, you could see every time you build, then your new JDK comes out, you have to change some value on your command line thing, right? There's like a lot of UX implications of that interface. I feel bad for Dan because now we're talking about different RFC. This has been
it's actually not that far off, right? Like, because I don't think, other than promoting version back out of metadata and like making that a top level thing, I'd also change it from name to ID, because I like name. Well, we've chosen name to mean the user readable version of it, but ID and version at that level. And then like, that's all you need, right? Then it's up to the pack team to figure out what the fuzzy matching flagging is for all of this stuff. But as like the asset package, it seems to be pretty identical to what we have.
The reason I'm unlock a lot of capability just exposing this data, and then we can come back to the pack interface later and not make that Dan's problem.
Yep.
A reason I might not choose to expose, to call it ID versus name, I think, or like the decision for me between those two things would be whether or not we expect the asset IDs to be globally unique. Because I don't think we expect them to be globally unique. You don't want to change Java to io.pacato.java, but in every other place, ID means globally unique, and name maybe kind of in some places means, identifier namespace to a particular location. And so if you want to keep it like Java 123, then name Java seems more clear than if the ID is Java. That kind of almost implies that it's like the build pack ID and version, which is
yeah.
What bothers me though
fine,
is
right.
everywhere else name is a human readable thing with like capital letters and spaces. I feel like we've trained everyone that that's what it means in this ecosystem.
That's true. I could
name,
yeah.
Like maybe the
name that word.
ID is just the last piece, and then it gets auto populated to Pacato, whatever, Java, that thing. And then if there's ambiguity, you have to give the whole shebang.
We want to cache the same dependencies between different build packs, though.
That's always done on SHA-256. So that's always done on that. Like we're talking about some synthesis to help human interaction, but internally it's always the SHA.
Yeah, as long as in the implementation we always use the SHA to duplicate, it should be okay. That's right. So okay, cool.
Yeah, so we're saying ID is basically unique to the scope of the build pack to some degree.
ID version tuple.
Right. Cool. I totally agree with name being a human unreadable thing. Like, I think that makes a lot more sense.
And I'm totally okay pushing that back down into metadata. Like it's not critical that it be a top level key. I think ID version is enough to give Matt what he needs to write a good error message as well, without, the convenience of it.
Agree. I think if we do ID version for the top, I would like to see name move down also.
So I feel like name is something we have everywhere else, and it's nice for consistency.
What does Buildpack Toml look like? Maybe this just needs to look exactly like Buildpack Toml.
Buildpack Toml has a name, and then I feel that I want to like copy this more places so it's all predictable. I feel like almost everything should have like a ID version name
description.
Yeah.
For what this is turning into, that might make sense. I don't think it made sense before, but I think with the change that the URIs are more first class, I get it.
And to help you out with this, Emily, long term, I am planning on an RFC for licenses attached to Buildpack, the top level Buildpack as well. And that might be a good time to also then suggest 4 assets at the same time, but don't do it today, certainly. I think the registry could really stand to use license information as a first class concept.
I want to add name and description to layer Toml someday.
Oof. Okay, so Dan, I think the takeaway is all of it looks great. Take a look at that asset block and see what from the normal build pack block makes sense there. and
Yeah.
bring those in, and then I'm ready to sign, and I'll have our packages structured this way before you get there.
I want to, there's a lot of complicated metadata. Like right now we have 2 labels on builders, depending on which order you're looking stuff up, right? All that's going to change quite a bit. So I'm interested to see what everything looks like after that, that shift. But then, so yeah.
Okay,
May
I'll
have
like
other
include
questions.
some like examples, more detailed stuff about how that'll work.
Sounds good.
Cool.
We're way over. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.